All right. Our live stream person just stepped out. I don't want to start without. Yeah. Oh, there he is. Sorry. Yeah, we're ready. Oh, it's going? Oh, we're live. Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. Well, welcome again, everybody who is here and everybody who is live streaming, however many there are. I'm very excited tonight. I guess I'll call Maria a friend of mine. We've worked together. I think we started working together 7 or 8 years ago with curriculum and looking at the future of education and how we can design education in a way that is student-focused and targeted to help our students succeed. And so over the years, we've become good friends. And when she was here doing some of the training at the beginning of the school year, part of the summer and our pre-session, I was out on maternity leave, so I missed her then because our daughter had been born. But I'm really excited that she's back and able to come and present a little bit to you guys, and you can hear what she has to say, and then we'll do a little question and answer session if you have some questions after she presents about what you hear, and she'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So, without any further babbling, Dr. Marie Alcock.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Is the mic working? Yes. Super cool. All right, hi, my name is Marie Alcock. Grew up in the Bronx with that one, so I just own it. And there you go. Thank you. We're going to get along just fine. All right. 2 things to know about me. I started off as a high school math teacher. That tells you everything you need to know about me. And I'm from New York City. That tells you everything else you need to know about me. Through a fiasco of events, though, I did end up teaching middle school. So when I taught middle school, it was 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Everyone with me on that? And I was the 8th grade homeroom teacher, so I had the trip and graduation, right? And I was also head of the after-school program, and I was the curriculum coordinator preschool through 8, as you do when you're a high school math teacher. And I taught social studies and literacy. When I did high school math, I had 7,000 8th graders. No, I'm sorry, 7,000 high schoolers. Let me try that. After I was the middle school teacher, I ended up teaching year-round school down in North Carolina. So if you have any questions about year-round school, happy to talk about that. When I taught year-round school, I only taught 8th grade, and I was pod teaching. So those of you who remember what pod teaching is, I had to do science, social studies, mathematics, and literacy, and band. So I taught band. Got to own that one, too. And at the time, I had 2,000 8th graders. And I always make the joke, can you imagine what that smells like? Okay, so in the idea, I had that was a great experience of learning really how to make this work, especially in a year-round program. Then I came back up north, and I was the director of a infant toddler through grade 8 program. So I had to challenge all of my assumptions of shouldn't they have learned that by now? Curriculum for 6-week-olds, oh my gosh. So I was really challenged, and I had to go learn about brain development. So my PhD is not in curriculum or assessment or anything like that. My master's is. I have a master's in the art of teaching, but my PhD is in neurological development, so brain development, specifically in language acquisition and mathematical computation acquisition. So if you have questions about that, what's going on with the brain, how's that happening, happy to have those conversations as well. So I ended up teaching graduate school. It's not that different from middle school, for those of you wondering. That's the only 2 people laughed at that one. So now I know where my edges are, right? I'm learning where my edges are on this piece. And the idea is my push has always been professionally for contemporary education. What does it mean to actually educate a human being? challenging the idea of maybe the agricultural structure that we had right in the beginning of the United States, the industrial model, which we developed in 1890 and we've been working through ever since. So what is, instead of it having be a model that's going toward what's going on in society, what is the genuine way a human being learns? And how do we make that most effective, number one, efficient, number two, right, and meaningful? So that was always my push. Yay, I wanted to do that. Wrote books. No one reads them. That's okay. But to do that and to answer the question has led me on this journey of really figuring out how to use standards effectively. And so standards work became part of my work, not because I'm Little Miss Standards, right? But the idea of it was a legitimate answer to getting to my goal, which was the most effective, the most efficient, and the most meaningful learning experiences. All right, so that's all about me. Yay, we're good. What I want to talk to you about, though, tonight is go into that why. Let's go into that why about what's going on. Like, why would I do standards-based anything? Like, what's the whole point? Why do I have to do it differently? What's going on differently for my mom from one of my sons, right? What's up with that? I'd like to make some connections for you on that, and then we're going to open it up to questions. Is that fair? This is interactive. I can see you, so you're like, I mean, this whole table was great. This table was like, yes, we're good to go. All right, but they're on camera. All right, here we go. So it starts off with my essential question, which really was, how can we prepare our learners for their future? Like, that's the task. So let's do that. Well, let's make that a reasonable expectation. You guys have heard of Bloom and Bloom's taxonomy? Yeah, that whole thing? Rock on Bloom and his verbs. Okay. Bloom used to ask teachers, what's your purpose? What's your purpose? What's your point? Why do you have a job? Is your job to find talent? Find talent in this group of kids and give it a meaningful A, or a meaningful B, or a meaningful C. If that's the job, then I can give you all kinds of policies and all kinds of structures to do that. Or is your purpose to develop talent? And that means I have to meet the kids, figure out exactly where they are, and then teach them things to improve their performance. And that means taking every kid and improving their performance. So that's this idea of develop talent. I can give you all kinds of policies and all kinds of structures to do that. But you have to decide what your purpose is. Because if you tell me your purpose is to develop talent, then some of the policies and some of the techniques of finding talent are going to start sabotaging your work. Similarly, if you tell me that your job is to find talent, then some of the policies and some of the structures where it's about developing the talent is going to start sabotaging your work. Pretty much it. That's the whole presentation right there. That pretty much sums up everything to this point. The industrial structures of education in the United States, or at least in North America, it was about finding talent. That's why we have the 100-point scale. That's why we average grades. That's why we have a lot of policies. It was about A, B, C, D, and F, and it had to mean something. It never was to actually teach all the kids. We used to be able to kick kids out of school. Yes? Okay? We used to be able to say, you know what, I'm really not going to worry about that situation. But as the decades went on, and without me doing a whole history of the standards and all that, it wasn't until mid-90s, well, actually, it goes like this, 70s truancy officers. It became every kid had to go to school. That was in the 1970s. And then it was about, oh no, now schools, you have to feed the kids. We never used to have to feed the kids before. We used to let them just leave. You with me on this? So the structure of the school was changing. Truancy officers in the 70s, 80s, it was stay in school, be cool. Remember, we used to have celebrities would come out and be like, Will Chamberlain would say things like, be cool, kids, stay in school. Remember all that? All right. That was because less than 20% of the U.S. population really went on to higher ed in lots of ways. And less than 40% of the student population finished high school. They would go to school, but they kind of dropped out. We wanted them to stay. So at the end of the 80s, woohoo, almost 80% of the U.S. population made it to 8th grade. That was huge. So in the 90s, we were like, let's get them to high school. So in high school, by the end of the 90s, we had almost 92% of the US population entered high school. They didn't graduate, they entered it. But almost 40% of the US population went on to college or some post-high school experience. Everyone with me on that? And that gets us into the 2000s. But the push in American education was, you have to teach every kid. That was the push. This is when we start getting Title IX. This is when we start getting lots of special ed structures. Everyone with me on this? Sorting kids was less important because now more kids had opportunities to go to college. We had bigger opportunities. 1906 was the first standardized test to see if kids could move on to the private college system. SATs, that version of it. So this expectation of developing talent in every kid is now the job description. That's what we expect of teachers. You better teach my kid. But now we're dealing with the fact that some of these sorting techniques from the industrial model is becoming problematic. That has led to this discussion. All right. So here are the two big problems. This is specifically about the report card. Everyone with me on this? Turn to your colleague, tell them it's going to be okay. All right. Problem number one, we totally don't agree on the report card. We don't agree on a purpose. Problem number two, we totally don't agree on what counts. I'm just going after the report card in this conversation. Is that okay? By the way, the report card is the least important piece of what we're doing. You just let me say that? You didn't even react? There it is, thank you, okay. Teaching kids is the most important thing we do. Report cards are autopsies, right? There's nothing we can do about it, it's an autopsy. I'm very interested in diagnosis and prescription. The kids are still alive, okay? Autopsies though, those are report cards, they're the least important thing we do, so they should steer none of our curriculum, our instruction, or quite frankly, even our assessments. Everyone with me on this? But out of compliance, and I totally want my kids to go to college, I need a report card. So that's how I'm going to talk about it. So what's the purpose? All right, if I were to survey 10,000 people across North America and say, what is the purpose of a report card? I would get versions of these top answers. Give me a thumbs up when you're done reading. Okay, so that first one is really more about college, right? Report progress to parents and others. Others meant college. The second one is more about get the kids to even try to work hard in school, right? If you don't grade it, they won't do it. The third one is, well, will my kid get into AP chemistry, right? Or an honors program. The fourth one is more about, how's that class going? What are those grades? Let's look at that. Now let me show you the sorting technique. What do we think of a teacher? This is a teacher, and all her students got A's. Every single student got an A. What does society think of this teacher right off the bat? Totally easy. As a K class. Now, that's called grading on the curve. Now, this teacher knows she has to figure out, okay, what student's work is going to get the A. There are some students I can give the B, and some students I can give the C. You can't fail any kids without contacting parents first. Okay, that's got to be bad. The D, it better be pervasive. But teachers have been trained because of that expectation to grade on that curve. Some kids get A's, some kids get B's, and some kids get C's. And I better be able to substantiate what it is. Otherwise, if all my kids got A's, I'm going to be labeled too easy. That's what that one's about. Fifth one, that's about the kids. That's this kid. Now this kid, this is a student, she knows everything. She doesn't do any of my homework. She's disruptive in class, but she knows the stuff. I gotta get her. 10% of the grade. I got to get her on the report card. How are we doing? Everyone with me on that? Here's my question. Those are 5 different purposes. I can't make a report card that achieves all of them. Too many purposes sabotages effectiveness. So rank them at your table. Which one's the most important to which one is the least important? And no, you don't get to say, and these 2 tied. No, I seriously want one most important and one least important. Now, if you start disagreeing with your table, you don't need to agree. You can take notes in front of you separately. But play this out. You too. That might be taking kind of an obedient middle student, trying to get them to really achieve greatness. 5 is a student who is doing difficult, obnoxious things, not doing any of their homework. This is a student who's having gaps in their performance, and you're trying to get them. The different purposes.
So like 5 is, I didn't do homework, so I'm
Yeah,
great on
you
it.
didn't turn in
Yeah.
work. You didn't turn in work. But 2 is a kid who's like, I did good enough. And you're like, no, there's more to life. All right, start documenting your answers. That's fine. I'm good with that. Here's my point. If I were to survey 10,000 adults across North America, and these are the 5 pervasive answers we get, and I just told you, if I made a document that tried to achieve all of those, we're toast. It's a useless, over-processed document. So here we go. In general, audiences can agree that number 1 starts to become the most important because that transcript impacts other high schools, other colleges, or jobs. So the report card is not even the best way for me as a teacher to communicate with you as a parent. It's not the best way. But in terms of jobs and colleges, you need something. If you don't have any kind of a transcript, that starts to become a problem.
Also, how can I get $5 for a B and $6 for an A? How's that going to work?
Exactly. What kind of incentive program do you have? Okay. The least important started to become this one, only because the gotcha was just a teacher motivation angle, and it doesn't actually help other audiences or even the parents. Because I can tell you about what's going on with your student or your child without necessarily penalizing them on a report card, which will permanently impact them. And when it gets subpoenaed and goes to court, which is another part of my job, it doesn't go over well. All right, so in that case, this tends to be the pervasive piece. My point is too many purposes. I actually don't care what purpose you pick. As a society and a community, I respect you. You're going to do a good job. Pick one that works for you, but then pick it and stick to it. That becomes the purpose. Make sure all the teachers know the purpose. Make sure all the students know the purpose. Make sure all of our parents know the purpose. And then that's the only purpose of that report card. Don't try to make that report card be more things. It starts to become a collection all of every ambition and hope and dream, and then it becomes meaningless. Because if I try to do one, it sabotages the other. All right, that was issue number 1. But don't stop there. Order now, and I will double your order. Issue number 2. We totally don't know what counts. Now, on the left-hand side, I have kind of terms that represent like projects or normal assessments. And on the right-hand side, we have things that are more process piece and things that we tended to put into like good citizenship grades. Here's my challenge to you and your table. No, we're going to do this individually. You. How many of those should count on a report card grade? 1? 8? 10? 12? 16? We have to be consistent here or else it loses its meaning. Oh, you can't change that. Effort is effort. Scores are scores. So, how many of those? I just want a number. Are you ready? Come up with a number. Write it down. You can also signal it to me. I'm coming around. You don't have to tell anyone else at your table. It can be private. I know, right? Secret. Okay, I got you. How many of those things should count in a grade? What should teachers be paying attention to? What should be calculated, weighted? The magic formula of a grade. Man, I wish I could have made that sound a little more dramatic. No, I want numbers. Show me numbers. So far, only 5 people have given me their answer. I'm really looking. I got yours. I'm telling you, you can go in code. You can tap it out. I'm good. I really want the answer. Because this is what teachers have to do. Teachers have to make a decision about what counts. Okay, so you're at 16. And that's why you're going to have to pay teachers 3 days to fill out the report card. All right, what else we got? And then how am I going to, the shenanigans that are going to start coming in on that one. All right, but I get you, because some people really try and do that. Okay, here's the point. If I were to survey 10,000 adults or teachers on this one, this is what we get. And except for the fact that no one says 4, not 4. We are everywhere, which means a kid, my child, has to learn how to get an A from you, and then has to learn how to get an A from you, and then learns how to get an A from you. So they spend more time learning how to go through the grade than they do focusing on how to learn. And that forces them into an obey state. Just tell me what I got to do, and I'll get the A. That is an obey state processing. And they learn how to do school. All right, I'm going to min-max the A in your class. Your class is cake. Okay, got this one. And by doing that, we've created students who are good at the school thing, and some that reject it, which has no reflection on their actual intelligence, possibly their game ability. But we've distracted them from the more important task, which is called figure out how to learn, figure out how to self-assess, figure out how to self-regulate, then figure out how to self-direct, and then figure out how to self-motivate. If I'm constantly just obeying you and figuring out how to get your A, I don't have the ability to play that game. These are 2 different games. One is, I'll figure out how you're sorting me, and then I'm going to figure out how to make sure I'm in the top, versus, oh, you want me to actually learn something. How am I supposed to do that? All right, so the research gave us two pieces. This is research that's been going on since the 70s, actually. There are two rules neurologically for children that relate to grading. Rule number one, funny enough, you don't need grades to learn. Hilarious. Who knew? Kids can learn how to ride a bike without grades. Kids learn how to play video games without grades. So something's up with that. Number two, teachers apparently don't need grades to teach. What? Which means, of all the things you and I do in a school day, the least impactful is grading. It doesn't actually help kids learn, or more should I say, they can learn effectively without it, and it doesn't actually help teachers. Or should I say, they can actually make decisions about what to teach without the grade. So that's issue number one. Issue number two, grading should never be done on a curve at any grade level. A genuine curve where I go, the highest score will be the A. How do you like that? Your heart surgeon could have known 50% of the material, but they were top in their class. Yeah, not liking that. Or your child got a 97%, but all the other kids got 98 and 99 and 100, so they fail. Well, that stinks. So the curve, bad. But let's go easier. Do you remember my enculturation curve where teachers learned I can't give every kid an A, so I have to divide the work into the best work I got, then sort of not as much best, and then the worst work I got, and that's A, B, C. That's a curve. And culturally in schools, we've been promoting that as a decision-making factor. I'm not going to call out any teachers. I don't want to embarrass anyone. I'll admit to you, I had to do. I would have my students write the papers. I'd go home over the weekend. I'd get milk and cookies. I'd sit down and I'd lay out all the papers. And depending on my mood, I'd be like, all right, I've had a rough day. I'm going to read Rebecca's paper first, right? Did you ever save the really good ones? You were like, this one will make me feel okay. And I read Rebecca's paper, and I'm like, ah. And I also know if Rebecca or Henry didn't do well on it, something was wrong with the assignment, right? Right? And I don't want to have to regrade all of them, so I need to get my Rebecca and Henry. Got those, all right. I'm ready to read Patrick's. All right, here we go, Patrick. Milk and cookies. That was a joke. Is it too early for that? Okay, we're just joking. Oh, I read Lynn's. And then I start filling it in. And I know the parents won't attack me for these grades. Feedback, on the other hand, is critical. Grading, useless. Feedback, vital. Children need feedback constantly. Daily. I want them getting feedback, and not necessarily to other people or parents. The feedback has to go to the learner. Yes, to the parents too, I'm with you on that one. But first to the learner, because they're the ones who actually have to make decisions about what they're going to do next. How are we doing on this? You with me? Effective grades are accurate, consistent, meaningful, and actually promote learning. This is called Story of the Bee. Which table am I picking on? I need 4. Hi, you're my 4 students. Welcome to the game. Can everyone see me over here? Okay, this goes after the whole issue of college. I have a son who's a freshman right now, so the wounds are fresh. That's what freshman's about, right? How are they going to get into college? Well, colleges have been funding the research on this. And colleges have been desperately waiting for high schools to get on the trail because they want honest and transparent feedback. They are, in short, sick of being lied to. Let me demonstrate. I'm a science high school teacher. Here are 4 of my students. We get a B, 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 and B. Are these grades accurate, consistent, or meaningful? Let's find out, shall we? Okay, my first student. Hi, welcome to the game. Hi. So, what's your name? Cheryl. Hi, Cheryl. Thank you for being on our show tonight. Okay, Cheryl got a B. Now, Cheryl, as a student, came into class, and do you remember, Cheryl, that she was able to do, and this will be the only time you ever hear me do percents. Ready? She was able to do about 80% of the standards. Remember that? You kind of came in. That was awesome. Over time, she practiced, she worked. She didn't get all her assignments in, but most of them. And she was able to get up to about an 85% of the standards. Well done, well done. She was never much of a behavior issue. In fact, in many ways, she was my invisible student. Everyone with me on this? B. Well done. Cheryl? All right, I'm working on it. Hi, sir. What's your name? Hi, Andrew. Welcome to our show tonight. Andrew, he was also in my class. Andrew, when he first came in, do you know the kid who bombs that first test because he didn't know how to get an A on my course and he didn't know what the test was? Remember that? Oh, man. And the test had some gotcha pieces. He tanked it. I'm talking 30%. You with me on this? Also, he was distracted. He was a mess, okay? But partway through, I moved his seat, okay? We worked out a plan, and man, he really started getting that work done, really came down with he came to extra help and study sessions. He really put the pedal to the metal, and by the end, he was able to do 100% of the standards. But because we average grades to penalize children who take longer to learn, B. Now, hello, ma'am. What's your name? Diane. Welcome to the show. Diane was one of those students who she was able to do 100% of the standards right from the start. And she knew it. Oh, Diane came in, and she is nothing but a walking distraction. In fact, Andrew would have done better if he hadn't been sitting next to Diane. Diane didn't do any of my homework, any of my formative assessments, but she would come in and she aced the test. Fine, you know science, and I'm proud of you, but I got to get you because she has been disrespectful, hurting other kids in my classroom. B. Guess whose parents are going to write me a letter? Hi, sir. What's your name? David. David, welcome to the show. David is also in my class. David is one of those students, man, he came in, let's be honest, David, he was only able to do about 30% of the standards in the beginning. But can I tell you something about David? You never saw a harder worker. You never saw a better diplomat in the classroom. In fact, it was David who helped Andrew figure out a study method. David came to extra help sessions I didn't even offer. He just was there in the classroom ready to learn. He cleaned all the shelves. He organized all my materials. He loves the topic, and not only that, but by the end, he was able to do 78% of the standards. Look at the growth. I gave him the B. B, 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 and B. Colleges are sick and tired of not being able to figure out which kid you're sending them. They want to be able to pick the kid that's right for their program. Some kids, oh my God. Can I try that again? Let me try it again, costume change. Some colleges want the Andrews. Growth, experience having to develop a learning strategy. Some kids want the Dianes. Don't worry, we'll teach them how to collaborate and how to be respectful. We just need the science standards. Some kids want the Davids. Only I changed it. Instead of some children, I said some kids. Some schools want the Davids, and some schools, by the way, we should do a better job for our Cheryls. Everyone with me on that? She was a well-behaved kid, and so she was totally off my radar. I'm so sorry, Cheryl. I can do better, okay? But in this place, standards-based grading and reporting wants a product grade. That's the science standards. A process grade, that's how they're doing with their learning behaviors. And a progress grade, that's the growth. Let's regrade them, shall we? Cheryl, product. Okay, it was a B. Process. Okay, it was a B. Progress. Okay, it was a B. You actually are still really a B student, but I appreciate you. Andrew, product. How was he doing on the science standards? At the end, what could he do? 100%. The college doesn't care that it took him time to learn it. Can he do 100% of the standards, yes or no? Answer, yes. A. Process. Did he have a method of learning at the end? Yes. Again, doesn't matter that it took him time to learn. A. Progress. 30 to 100? A. Diane. Let's talk to Diane now. Product. A. You cannot take that away from her. Don't muddy a science grade with a behavior grade. If you value behavior, don't disrespect it by only making it 10% of the grade. Give it a real grade. But if you muck it up with a science grade or a math grade, the kid's not getting the feedback. All right? So, product, A. But process, F. Oh, wait, we're that school. C. Sorry, that was a joke. Here we go. Progress. Did this child learn anything in my class? That's a shame. That's an F. I don't care if you can meet standard. Well done. That's called my minimum expectation. Sorry, that was too much sass? That was New York. Let me back it up. So, A, F, F. And now I can talk to parents. I'm not so much concerned about the science, but can I talk to you about how your son or daughter is approaching their learning? David, product. It was a C. I don't get to give the child the grade. This is cut and dry. C, but process. A, progress. A, honest, transparent feedback. That's what you're after for the kids, for the colleges, and for the parents. Okay, turn to a colleague, process what I just said. That's called the story of the bee. We give them a round of applause for being my victims on that story. They did a really good job. Okay. That's called the story of the bee. We'll be quizzing you on that later. But wait, what about the 100-point scale trap? What's up with the 100-point scale? Let's check this out. That's actually one of my sons, Colin. He's 13 now. Likes to fly airplanes. Okay, so to tell this story, this is called the 100-point scale trap. We have to agree that a 4.0 item is above standard. So a test item, this item is a 4.0 item. If you do well on this, it's correct. That's called evidence above standard. Everyone with me? But this item, this is a 3.0 item. This is an item that I designed that only expects the standard. Remember, the standard is my minimum expectation? It's a 3.0 item. This is a 2.0 item. This is an item, maybe it's a quiz. It just asks for part of the standard. So this is a 2.0 item. I give the item to the child. The child either gets it correct or incorrect. And then I have evidence at the 2.0 level. Everyone with me on this? Okay, good. Okay. But we're just starting standards-based grading and reporting. And these two teachers are trying to figure out if my son is above standard, at standard, or below standard. But they don't want to change all their assessments. I don't know who I'm channeling there. It's someone emotional, okay? And so they just want to use the 100-point scale and convert it to the P scale. Can we just do that? Let's check it out. All right, so teacher A, my son, Colin, is getting 100% on every single one of her tests. She's ready to write me one of those notes like, have you thought about challenging Colin? Maybe he should go into an honors class. Because that 100% means that my son is probably above standard. Probably. But my son is also in this class, same exact standards, funny enough. But my son is getting 50s on every single test. So this teacher is ready to write me notes like, is everything all right at home? Is Colin okay? Can we get him a tutor? Dave has some good ideas on how to improve. So this teacher is about to say, my son is below standard using the 100-point scale. Hold the phone. Let me go look at these assessments. If teacher A's assessments, all the items are 2.0 items. Some of these standards have parts of them that are easier to assess than others. Yes? So all the assessments are 2.0 items. My son can get 100 on that. But the other teacher, half of the assessment is 3.0 item at standard, and half of the assessment is 4.0 items above standard. My son is getting the 3.0 items correct, but the 4.0 items incorrect. 50. Which means since my son can do the 2.0 item and the 3.0 item, my son is actually what? At standard. But neither teacher had that data because they weren't aligning their assessment items to the P scale. They were just giving their assessments like they used to, which again, we don't agree on what to count on the test. So they had no idea whether my son was below standard, at standard, or above standard. This is called the 100-point scale trap, and it's why I can't use the 100-point scale and just convert it. But hold now, and one more order on that. Can I just talk about meaningful? And then we're done. Ready? Let's pick on this table. Because I love this table. You guys are great. No, I'm going to have to pick on a couple of tables with me. I'm starting with you. I'm picking on you. All right. So we like to think that we know what a student needs. Let's say a student is getting a 98. What does a student who's getting a 98 need to do to improve their performance? Man, they're probably just making some little mistakes, right? Probably just need to really pay attention to detail, maybe practice a couple of things. We think we know what that means. Or a 95, same idea, right? What does a student who's getting an 85 need to do to improve their performance? We think we know what that means too, right? An 85, maybe they missed an assignment. Maybe they were struggling with a whole set of standards, right? There's probably a section they have to re-go over, yes? But what about a student who's getting a 75? What should a student who's getting a 75 do to improve their performance? We think we know what that means, right? We think we know that, you know what, maybe they were absent a little bit, maybe they missed a whole section they need to work on. Maybe we should go to the teacher and ask, what do we need to do to improve our grade? Everyone with me on that? That's a 75. Okay, what about a 65? What does a child need to do to improve their grade if they're getting a 65? Well, something's up. They probably missed a couple of grades or activities, right? They're missing something. We think we know what that means. How about a 55? What should a child who's getting a 55 do to improve their performance? Starts to lose its clarity at the lower end. The 100-point scale has 50 points of F and only 10 of A. So what should a child who's getting a 45 do that's different from what the child who was doing the 55? Because, man, I knew the difference between 95 and 85. I should know the difference between 45 and 35. What should a child who's getting a 35 do to improve their performance? And it better be clear and different from what a child should be doing at 25, or do we just give up on kids who are failing? See, the techniques, 25, what should I do for the child who's getting 15? And it better be clear for the teacher and different from the 5. Because if you're telling me you know the difference between 85 and 95, I expect the same clarity all the way through the scale. So a P scale, I know you were already trained on it, so I'm not going to go too far into it. But a child who gets a 0, you have to earn that 0, by the way. A P scale defines the conditions of success. So the child who sits in the classroom and doesn't do anything is a no data. The child who can task as instruction, they have their notes from class, they're in the obey state. They're doing what I told them to do. That's a 0.0 item. Okay, I didn't get, that's over there. That is called the obey state. They just copied the notes. But the difference between the child who actually copied the notes and the child who didn't, this child might be in a social emotional situation or a cognitive processing situation. Everyone with me on that? This child needs an immediate intervention. This child is following the directions. Well done. Now, 1.0 means with help can perform. So when I have them in a team where they have a model right in front of them, they're able to do it. That's called guided practice. The child who's at guided practice to get to independent practice, which is a 2.0, needs more time on task. Okay? But the child who can do independent practice to being able to get to proof of standard needs more instruction on the standard or on the parts of the standard they're not performing on yet. The child who can do proof of standard but not at 4.0 yet needs more opportunities and more models of what a 4.0 is. I know absolutely what I have to do for every single child on every part of that scale. And that's what you deserve. All right, turn to a colleague, process what I just said. This is going to be the big end. That's why you need those other clarifiers. It does not align to the 100-point scale. It does not align to a rubric. It's not a rubric. And that's why. Right. Oh, yeah. And you're like, are you kidding me? Have you met my daughter? Yes, no, I'm with you.
My daughter's the smartest kid in the world.
So what happened? Right? Was it behavior or what? The missing, right? And that's where you're like, product, process, both. And then this idea. We need to be fluent in P scale because it's not the 100-point scale. So how do we handle that? Hold on, I don't want to just have, because you know they have the same question, right? So we're going to go in a much larger group. Okay, let's finish that thought. Oh, wow, right? So there are 3 reasons, those are 4 of my kids. I have 9 now. Those are just the 4. These are the 3 reasons why you would do standards-based anything. Honest and transparent feedback at a diagnosis and prescription level so kids can actually learn. We are absolutely here to develop talent. That is our primary objective. Everything else is secondary. Inefficient process, So it is about time. These teachers need more time. And just having teachers trudge through all the material, that's not flying anymore. So we need an efficient process so that we can actually do relevant and authentic, really knock it out of the park kind of a curricular learning experiences. And then the third, by having it laid out that clearly, we totally intend to teach the kids actually how to be self-navigating learners instead of just expecting them to be self-navigating learners. And that means their ability to self-evaluate, self-monitor, self-direct, and self-motivate. That does not mean we leave them alone to go do that. It means we teach them how to do that. Let me say that again. That does not mean I just go, well, kids, you have to learn how to be self-navigating. You're in 5th grade now. You're a man now. Okay? I don't do that. What I do is I say, here's the structure. Here's the learning target. Here's the learning strategy. Here's the assessment you're using. Do this until you can do it without looking at the model. You understand what I'm saying? We give them criteria. But the kids who min-maxed the system before, who learned that 95 was good enough, are not going to like this. They have to work. They hate it because they have to think. They learned how to get an A. Wasn't it enough just for me to get an A? And we're sitting there going, actually, no. I need you to learn. All right. Those are the 3 methods. Yay, we're done. Yay. It could happen. All right. Let's hear some questions. Observations. What do you like? Questions. What are you wrestling with? Yeah, can we use mics for this? And by the way, I can show you tons of where this goes, like examples of the type of work. When you do relevant and authentic experiences with these kids, we're talking internships, we're talking field study pieces. We're really going to have these kids doing things that other schools will look at and say, what? We're going to be looking at our kids getting credentialed, letters of recommendation instead of that A, right? They'll get an A, but that was easy. It was almost too easy. But how do you get credentialed in that content area? How do you get credentialed in learning strategies and methodology? There's so many other things we're going to add to the transcript that's going to knock it out of the park. But we need enough time to do that, which means I can't take 3 days to fill in a grade book. I need this to be fast, efficient, transparent. What I meant was, hi, what's your question?
I think my mind is still spinning, but the mic came to me.
I have that effect on people sometimes. Sorry.
So there are a couple of things. First one, is testing valuable then?
Oh, yes. Feedback and diagnosis and prescription, yes, absolutely. But it's going to look different and they're going to be shorter. I don't need 10 items. I could give an assessment with 4 items. We never used to do that with the 100-point scale. Why? You just killed B, right? It goes A, C, right? But now I can give a 2.0 item, a 3.0 item, and a 4.0 item. 3 questions, and I've got where we are. You see what I'm saying? Shorter, faster assessments will be a part of what we're doing. Next question.
You also mentioned that universities or colleges are waiting for high school to really hop on the bandwagon of feedback. And I don't know if you can answer this question, but why are they not doing it? I think if, they're preparing their students for the real world, and they're saying, well, these B's and C's really don't mean anything. And I've only known of like a handful of colleges in my experience that actually do this feedback thing, and it's been valuable for them, but I haven't necessarily seen it played out in other universities as well.
It's a good question. So I work a lot with the international schools, okay? And a big part, when the international schools went to this, they wanted in writing 2 things. That colleges not only would accept a standards-based transcript, but there was no penalty for it, that it wasn't we'll look at them second or something like that. Like, that it had to be guaranteed. You want to talk about a competitive world? So they independently, must have been now 15 years ago. So they got in writing, all of the universities prefer, that's what they wrote out. Number 2, Right now in Montana, this summer, there's going to be a symposia, and all of the universities in the state of Montana are switching to standards-based grading and reporting. And they're going to be also training all of their future teachers to be able to do it this way. So states and universities as a whole are going in this direction. First one, funny enough, Harvard. Harvard, who invented the 100-point scale in the ABCDF system, was the first to switch over to the standards-based grading and reporting methodologies. Although Hampshire College did so with CAMs and things like that. They're going. It's happening. If you have colleges that are not, tell them about the symposia and invite them to go.
Yeah, Hampshire College is amazing.
Right?
It is.
They definitely led the way. Hampshire College, which went out of business.
Yes, no funding. It's the money.
My brother went there. My older brother.
I'm going to let someone else ask questions while
Because you're doing so great. Go ahead and pass the mic, and then we'll bring it back to you.
Marie, could you tell us or show us what an assessment would look like?
Which one do you want to see? A 2.0, a 3.0, a 4.0?
Maybe go like that, 2, 3, 4.
Why, sure. Happy to do that. What grade level? Oh, let's do, I don't know, let's see what comes up first. Here we go. All right, so let's make that bigger. No, that's an item bank. Let's go to an actual T1. Wow, they all say item bank, don't they? I want you to see what the format looks like. Wow, kindergarten came up first, huh? All right, here we go. Okay. See in the upper right-hand corner of the item? See how it has the actual standard and the P-scale level? See that? Every assessment item your children get should be labeled what standard and what P-scale level. Remember my 100-point scale trap? My kid needs to know, is this a 2.0 item? Is this part of the standard? Or is this a 3.0 item? Is this the entire? For diagnosis and prescription, they need that info. No guessing. No 5 out of 10. I don't even know what that means. What was the item and what was the level? So what you're looking at right here, this is first grade, ELA. So this is a 3.0 item. So read the following prompt and underline the word that suggests a feeling. Circle the phrase that suggests a feeling. So notice there were 2 parts. That standard, if you read it, had 2 parts. If I separated that into 2 problems and the child got one of them right and one of them wrong, all I know is a 50. I need to know that they have to get both of those right to be at standard. Everyone with me on this? Transparent, honest, and clear. That's how the 2.0 and 3.0s look. And that should be the entire first reason why we're doing this, to improve performance. If my child got A correct and B wrong, what should they work on? What's the prescription? What should they work on to improve their performance? Well, they got words, feeling words. They need to work on feeling phrases. Every item your child ever gets should immediately have a prescription on what they should be working on to improve their performance. not redo the whole unit. Okay? Not liking that one. Now, a 4.0 item would be more like these examples. Can you see the screen? So remember, I'm getting to the relevant and authentic world on this one. So 4th grade script writing, they had to write a script. So the 3.0 just had the script and the parts that came right from the standard. But then they opened it up to the kids and they said, you know, you could write a screenplay, submit it to Netflix. They downloaded the Netflix pitch deck for that, and the kids were filling them out. Then another one wanted to make live theater. So one group of kids worked on the Netflix pitch deck for the script, and another group of kids did a live theater production that they did, because that's what script writing should do. So in this idea, you're unstoppable. And it's not, oh, we're going to do one project and you better be interested in it. So relevant and authentic to the teachers, that's one level. And student choice, where the teacher gives them like 3 choices, the teacher still came up with all the choices. What if the kid hates all of them, right? So there's this idea of rehearsals they're going to do, but then authentic, and they're going to be able to open it up. Another one. Okay, topic was calorie impact on energy, 9th grade, biology, and health programs. You are what you eat. So they ended up designing better menu items. That worked for them, and they campaigned on it. Here was one. What is that? Anyone actually know what that thing is? So grade 5 science, they were looking at invasive species in the area. Now, yes, when you look at invasive species, we all study the same ones, right? The same that we know about, Hawaii with the cats, right? Or what are those Japanese moths that we have now coming up? But the idea here becomes, what about invasive species within 10 miles of our school? What are we currently dealing with? And so they looked at some of that, but that is called a darner. Any of you ever heard of the game, what is it? Zelda? Right? Legend of Zelda? There's a game called Legend of Zelda, what is that, Breath of the Wild? They have tons of darners, all kinds of darners. Never knew they were real. I know that looks like a dragonfly. Do you know how huge that thing is? That thing is as big as this. Oh, I know, right? So the kids are like, what is that? Turns out it's real. Okay, topic, budgets and project management, right? Again, above standard. There's no standard that's like kids should be able to fit within a budget and do project management within constraints. But isn't that a life skill we kind of want our kids to learn? So this, right, high school geometry, a CTE construction, they built these mini cities out of, I guess it was boxes, wine, like delivery boxes, wine boxes and things. And they created those and made designs for the local community for Christmas. Within constraints. Or themes. Now what's really nice about these is the kids could have more than one version. Let me show you one. Okay, you ready to go to, right now, all today we've been sitting in the shallow end of the pool. Do you want to go into the deep end of the pool for a second? Look, turn to your colleague, tell them it's going to be okay. We're leaving the shallow end of the pool and we're going into the deep end now. Bring a buddy. So this is a young girl. We had her read, just 2 minutes, read aloud. Fluency in reading is an incredibly difficult thing to assess on a paper and pencil thing. And we take all kinds of standardized assessments that like to tell us they know how our kids are doing. That is a 2-minute recording of the kid reading a book. Now, that was taken in fall of grade 1. We record the child again in spring of grade 1. And then we record them again in 2nd grade fall, 2nd grade spring, 3rd grade fall, 3rd grade spring. This is her on her graduation day. And we get a final ability to actually present. You're getting a portfolio of what your child can do. That's a much better way to talk to parents about where their child is and what they're capable of doing and what they should be working on. Much better than a report card, which again is an autopsy. What are you supposed to do to help your kid after they got a bad grade? So in this idea, you should be getting performances and products that align to self-navigation tools. And the self-navigation tool has what the child has to be able to do and learning strategies to help them either learn it or practice it. But then, oh yeah, okay. But here's how it goes. So I've already picked up, oh, I have not picked on this table. Every other table's been picked on. I did get you, but I didn't get you. All right, here we go. All right, so here's how, oh, you ran away. Who was there? Aw, all right, I'm going to let that pass. Let's pretend this is a unit of a new curriculum in a standards-based system. Here's how it's going to work. So I've got the standard. They have to write an informational. Okay? I need a context. You're doing the context of ladybugs. Are ladybugs good for agriculture? Yes or no? And they have to do some research on it. So I teach them how to write an informational, and I'm teaching them this context of the ladybugs in agriculture. How are we doing? Who picked the ladybugs? The teacher. So it's relevant and authentic, but it's relevant and authentic to the teacher, not the kid. I mean, maybe they like ladybugs, but maybe they're terrified of them. I don't know. All right? So I've got the informational. This gets me the 2.0 and 3.0. The with the ladybugs is my what I call in-house 4.0. Everyone with me on that? But we're going to call that the rehearsal. I'm just teaching them how to do it. Meanwhile, the students find that in the playground. And a rumor that dinosaurs are back goes around the school. New essential question, what is that? So, like a good teacher, now these are where I talk about relevant and authentic. At the end of this unit, the teacher was probably going to say, what else could we do informationals on, or what is something you're interested in? You let them write one, you let them do it again. But the what is that kind of took it over. She set up a CSI criminal investigation scene, right? Got measurements, samples, and then, of course, our custodial staff did remove the skeleton. By the way, I do not promote planting skeletons on the campus just as part of your curriculum. That does not go well. But here, the students started writing informational about it and posting it to the local university saying, what is that? Then they got to get answers from adults. Now they're having a real conversation with adults at an expert level using what they learned about an informational. Everyone with me on this? That is a lot stronger than just my teacher gave me an A. What was the assignment? My teacher gave me an A. So they happened to be using Twitter, but they did get a DNA sample and they did test it. They got to see adults argue. One university was so sure it was a cat. Another was positive it was a possum. Argument ensued. Kids are like, whoo. So now they're watching how adults look at details, use details to support a claim, look at that claim and what's the counterclaim. It was fantastic. Or don't do it and just stick with the ladybugs. But I need time to pull that off. So I need the standards to be crystal clear in a self-navigation tool. Now what happens, turns out it was a possum, according to the DNA. But they got to talk to a vet and 2 university departments, biology. It's great. Do we have time for one more example? Okay, because then after this, I'm going to hit you with questions again, all right? So I want you to be thinking about your questions, because now I'm showing you 4.0 items. But this one's a funny one because it has 3 different years, okay? This one comes from Connecticut. It's called, it was a measurement unit. Every school has a measurement unit. Measurement, and all that that implies. So now we need a context. So it was measurement, our Union Station. It's a case study. So students should be doing case studies, themes. They should be doing challenges, design a solar collector that can run our school. Or they should be doing issues, this versus that. You with me on this? Or topics. This one was a case study. Our Union Station measurement. So the teacher went out and they got certain pieces of material for measurement, which was fantastic. The first year, the teacher was like, yay, miles and miles of measurement. So they measured the tracks, time schedules, because they had to do elapsed time, and number of population that can be in the space safely. Done. The teacher at the end says, who else would care about this? What else can we measure? Now that year, a student had just visited with their family to Japan. And he said, the trains in Japan run on time. Why? What's the difference? So the kids certain kids did a deep dive into that, and they really looked at, and it's about scheduling. So in Japan, they actually overlap the schedules in a certain way so that if someone's not just a couple minutes late to work or whatever the case may be, the train goes, and someone else was on it, and they get paid for that run. You with me on this? But they overlap it a lot, and they have to pay for that. In the United States, we don't do that. So if anything slows up someone getting to their post when they're supposed to at that time, the whole system starts to get slowed down. Maybe just a couple of seconds, maybe a couple of minutes, but it adds up. So the kids made a proposal, and they proposed it to them. Hey, why don't we do this? Do you think they did it? No. No one listens to kids on that one. But they made their proposal, and look what they learned. Sometimes good ideas don't get done. That's called real life, relevant and authentic. Scooby-Doo ending. Second year. Teacher's like, cool. We're going to do miles and miles, our Union Station, case study. They measure the track, they do elapsed time schedules, and they do how many people can fit in it. Now, this was the year of the Boston Marathon bombing. Those kids got very concerned. They were very concerned. They looked at this, and they were like, oh, my gosh, this place gets packed. So they started measuring what are the escape routes, what are the pieces, how long would it take for all those people to get out. They mapped it all out. And then they applied that to their own school, and they really looked at what they could do in terms of safety for their school and made a proposal. And the school did take that. Well done, kids. Yay. Third year, miles and miles, my Union Station. They measure track, they look at elapsed time. Notice how the teacher can start getting faster at this part. They get very confident with it. And they do the number of people. The students, we took more pictures of the Union Station that time, and they noticed that the people are trapped in Union Station with the food offerings that are there. So the kids said, can't we measure food? Can't we measure calories? Can't we measure like options or sugar? And we said, actually, yeah, you can totally measure that. So they totally measured it and made a chart, and they made a proposal. They said they do not have healthy options. So they made suggestions of healthy options using the same ingredients or pieces that all of the little bodegas in the station had. And the bodegas loved it, and they totally took it in, and they were like, this is a gluten-free option approved by Allison, right? No last names, we were saving it. But people got to see menu items that were like identified. Have you ever gone into a bookstore and they're like, this is one of our employees' favorites, right? That's what it was, and they were like, these are low-sugar items, these are vegetarian items, these are gluten-free options, and everybody loved it, and the kids got to make the world a better place. You want a curriculum that either produces joy, a career within 6 months of the unit, or makes the world a better place. And that's where you're going, and that's what the 4.0 items go for. Thank you very much for the question. Whoever asked it, I appreciate it. Okay, excellent. Okay, your turn. Questions?
So we have some questions that came from people on.
Excellent. Let's hear them.
So 2 questions. Number 1, does this work for any class size? So like if you have a large class or a small class.
Remember, I had 2,000 8th graders.
And then second, do the assessments work for or take into account different types of learning, so like visual versus maybe auditory learning?
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be where you're differentiating in the self-navigation tool. Now here, there are 5 ways to differentiate. You can differentiate by content. I'm going to teach you about civil rights, and here are different leaders. Pick which one you want to study and then share out with the class. Think of like a classic jigsaw. That's differentiating by content. You can differentiate by skill. Some of you are going to recognize these pieces. Some of you are going to have to explain these pieces, and you're going to have to do an analysis where you're comparing and contrasting different levels of it. You with me on this? That's differentiating by skill. I can differentiate by assessment. Oh, okay. That's where you have lots of different project items, and kids get to pick which one they want to do, okay? You can differentiate by instructional strategy. So that's where I might set up a visual table. Oh, if you want to learn this using calisthenics, pick an item from this table and over there in the gym. And if someone wanted to learn it musically, learn something from this table, but they're all learning the same thing. I just differentiate by instruction. And the last but not least, I can differentiate by learning strategy. You want to draw it out in a diagram? That's learning strategy number 1. You want to watch a YouTube video and learn it that way? That's learning strategy number 13. You want to do where you practice it over and over and over again? You understand what I'm saying? There are learning strategies that I could differentiate it by. 5 different ways that you're going to do that.
And then one final one. What if we have someone has a student who has like accommodations, so they're on an IEP or something like that? How does that look when they are in this type of structure? Because they might always need an aid or something in the classroom.
For sure.
Some sort of help.
Okay, back to, can I pull my 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0 item back out? Everyone with me on this? 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. If I am making an adaptation or a modification that is on a legal document, an IEP or a 504, it does not change the P scale level of the item. Watch the example. The standard is they have to add fractions. That's what they have to do, right? This is a 3.0 item for adding fractions. But the child is, you've been the child a lot, but the child is blind. So I read the problem to them. They successfully add the fractions. I don't make this a 1.0 item saying with help they can do it. They can add fractions. According to the standard, they are at standard. The fact that they're blind is not their fault. How are we doing with this? You see this? If it has a legal adaptation or modification, it does not change the P scale level of the item. Excellent question. Thank you very much for that. Sir, hi. What's your name? Hi, Ken. Oh, yeah, we really need a mic.
Yeah, and I apologize for being so late, but I was listening the entire way here. And the reason I came is I was trying to listen, but I realized I probably wouldn't hear the questions.
And
So
you were right.
I'm a bit of a skeptic.
For it.
And I believe that you can have a great 100-point scale class. You can have a great standard base.
Sure.
I think it really comes down to implementation and who's deciding the standards. So a real life, I have a son and a daughter that are experiencing this now. One child mostly has always gotten straight A's. So his experience so far, he's gotten a 2.5.
What grade level is he in?
High school.
Okay. Well, it matters only because depending on how long the child has been in the obey state with the one system,
Sure.
it takes them a long time to adjust to having it be done differently, and we have to be sensitive to that. Yeah.
And so he's had a 2.5 assessment, a 3.0 assessment, a 1.5 assessment, and a 2.0 assessment. So he's gotten 100% on those assessments, or maybe I should not.
He got it correct.
Okay,
Rock
thank
on.
you.
Correct.
See, I'm stuck in the old.
I'm with
old.
you. Hey, leopard.
So he got them all correct in a 2.5, 3.0, 1.5, and a 2.0. He has a 2.25 in the course, right? So that's a C. And he's really frustrated because he says, you know, if my homework counted, I would have an A. So
I don't know about that. I
but
don't know what
I guess my
homework is.
point is, if
Yeah.
you're given a 3.0, you're given a 2.0, and you only have given, and you don't have any 4.0 assessments, there's going to be some issues with the way the grading then comes out.
No doubt. And
So I
well,
guess my point
yeah.
here is it's all in implementation. And you can have standard base that's poorly implemented
Yep,
and that doesn't work very well at all.
for sure.
I have someone else who's doing wonderful in a standards-based course
Yep.
but we're doing like contrived things, and we're at like 4 grade levels below where we ought to be.
I want to repeat back what you've said to make sure I understand you correctly.
So my experience with standard-based
well, do you want me to
is not
handle
great.
the first one?
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
hearing you. Here, this is what I just heard. Hey, Marie, just because it's standards-based, I'm going to put some New York attitude into it, okay? Just because it's standards-based doesn't fix all the problems, okay? And just because it's a 2.0 item or a 3.0 item doesn't fix that it was a pathetic assignment in the first place, okay? So, and just because you're doing standards-based doesn't fix bad teachers. I'm throwing attitude in. Oh, but I am.
It can really, I think, constrain some teachers into having to teach to the pressures of this standard system.
Okay, constraining. So let's be real clear on this. The standards are the minimum expectation. So, if the standard is the minimum expectation, that stopped at 3.0. There's no constraint on where 4.0 can go, and it needs to go. All right, so that's where all of that. Standards should represent about 50% of the instructional time. My original 4.0s, the rehearsal, should represent about 30% of the instructional time. And where my students take it in authentic performances, where I release the reins a little bit more, should represent about 20% of the instructional time. And that's what you and I are going to call personalization. That's where students are going to be co-writing some of those learning targets. So 50% of the instructional time, 30% of the instructional time. Now, I work at some schools where they're like, oh, no. Standards are going to be, 50% of the instructional time, and personalized is going to be 50% of the instructional time. All right, but it's going to take a lot longer for those kids without models on how to think about it. I see your hand going up. I just want to finish my, okay. Well, I do that too, right? Okay, so in this case, I'm going to also wonder about the 100-point scale. There are some teachers that have done lots of things to mitigate what's wrong with the 100-point scale, and they work really hard at that. But my argument is that takes them too much time to fix a broken system. Okay, so in that situation, I don't want to be requiring teachers to spend that much time fixing a broken system when there are more important things that they should be doing. So I need a fast and efficient methodology for them to get to diagnosis and prescription so that I can get more of these relevant and authentic ideas. Can it be done? Can I mitigate it? Yes, I can, but it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. All right. How'd I do on guessing some of the pieces that you had?
No, I think that's fair, and I'm not criticizing any of the teachers by any means.
You love them.
I think it's more of a system than the teacher.
Okay.
Now, the other part of this is everything sounds great. And I think there's many things about standard-based that are wonderful. But we ought to then have some evidence to say, okay, let's compare apples with apples and let's show ways that is better. Like where could we see, like, is our test scores higher, or our whatever, their overall achievement levels higher, their performance better, their attitude better? Are there some kind of measures that we have? Because just saying things that it's better, I need to see some proof.
For sure. I would definitely reach out, and we'll give you lots of resources to go to, but I would definitely start off with the Harvard Brain Institute. They have an online journal that has pieces that you can look at. The AERA, the American Education Research Association, is dedicated to, they have huge numbers of research studies, but also white papers that you can access talking about not only, yes, is it better for this, but also implementation strategies to help where, yeah, some implementation's good and some implementation bad. Some of the worst implementations, if you just do a Google search on it, this will be fun, all right? So this is what happens. The order of the work is supposed to go, know the standards, then do standards-based curriculum, standards-based assessments, standards-based instructional practices, and then standards-based grading, and then last but not least, standards-based reporting. When the first research came out, especially hardcore in the late 90s, all the way through that first decade of the 2000s, lots of schools in North America were like, we're in and we're gonna go. And then they just switched to the report card. Never got the curriculum, never got the assessments, didn't get the instruction. So all the teachers were doing the 100-point scale and just converting it. So there's tons of discussions about teachers going, well, we were just making up grades and this is taking me twice as long and this is ridiculous. And it was, because they went about it incorrectly. So cheers to you for really going after this. Your teachers, I worked with them all day today. I'm working on pieces. It's all about the curriculum first. It's about really looking at what kinds of assessment items, and now they're moving toward these 4.0s, and they're going into this direction. That's what today was all about. All right, I know you were waiting on it. Give her the mic.
I just had
Hey,
a
Charlotte.
clarification question
Yeah.
with his child. In regards to putting out those standard scores, is there a reason that the child hasn't been assessed at a 4.0 level when he's calculating that?
So not every assignment is a 4.0 assignment.
That's true.
So it only, if your teacher only gives you one 4.0 assignment for the year, and you blow, or for the semester, you don't do well on that one, your chance of doing well in that class is.
Yeah, but that would be really bad implementation. No teacher would be told to run a class like that.
I think what I'm hearing and understanding, and Mr. Carpenter, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, one of the issues we're having with what's showing up in the report card is the software being used by all of North America is based on the 100-point system. It's based on the assumption that you have all of these things accumulating over time, and all it's reporting is the average of what you've done. So the farther into the quarter you get, the less chance you have of making any course corrections.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm understanding you to say is, with this new grading system, you expect it to start very low because you're only testing low. And over the course of time, you build up to the 4-point or the 3-point. So the fact that somebody has really low scores and the grade book gets automatically calculated to something really, really low doesn't mean what it used to mean at all. Am I getting that right?
You're getting it exactly right, and best performance stands, which means, let's say my child was struggling on the 2.0s and 3.0s, but on the last one they finally did get the 3.0, and they did get the 4.0. That negative experience, the grade is 4.0. There's no penalty for having to take time to learn. And that's a really important point. So especially if, and the way we would design it as teachers, if I were doing a course, sorry, I'm going to pick on this group now. No, you're doing well. I'm going to have you hold the mic. So in this case, in this situation, if my student was, 2.0, got it correct, 3.0, got it correct, then they try at a 4.0, I still will get another opportunity at a 3.0 and another opportunity at a 4.0. In fact, we like to have them start with a 4.0, start the unit, meaning in this case, there should be multiple opportunities to go at a 4.0 or 3.0 already in the design. I am not talking about retesting. This is not death by retest. That's very unfair to the teachers. They end up getting all this extra work at the end of a unit. But in the design of the unit, there should be multiple opportunities to get to 3.0s and 4.0s, and that's a design issue.
And would you say that there are certain subjects that lend themselves much more favorably to this system, such as the arts, music, English, even science, mathematics? It's a little harder to implement the 4.0 in some of this.
Arts, music, and phys ed are like cake for this. I mean, yes, this is how they've always designed it, always, so life is good. Math was easier than ELA. Math The trick we had to do with math was to get a context. So we really, in mathematics, young, let me say it like this. I'm going to go a little brain science on us. Is that all right? Back in the day, we used to be like, hey, is it fluency? Computational fluency, right? And that really, computational fluency depends on numeracy, right? That's in Wernicke's part of the brain. Mathematical concept without numeracy. So numeracy would be like the number 2. Everyone with me on that? But concept to pencils, to planets, to people, these are very different concepts to have behind number 2. That's held in Broca's area of the brain. Everyone with me on this? So there was this whole thing, and then you have to have concept of like a fraction is a part of a whole, right? If the students, then if I write 1/2 equals 1/2, numeracy, that's true and correct, computational fluency numeracy, but half a pencil is not equal to half a person. So if I have concepts behind it, that's not a true statement. For me to have fractions work, I have to know what the whole was. Everyone with me on that? So when I talk about deep understanding in mathematics, it's a different part of the curriculum than just computational numeracy. Everyone with me? In procedural mathematics. So there was a big push, 70s, 80s, it was all about procedural mathematics. And then in the 90s, they were like, if you just explain it to them, fluency will come. Yeah, that didn't work. And so what happens is we ended up with high schoolers still figuring things out on their fingers. Everyone with me on this? So the whole push became, no, dual intensity. Has to be dual intensity. It is fluency and deep understanding. And so what that does is creates the opportunity now for assessments that have a lot more meaning. So yes, I'll do coordinate geometry, right? So if I have coordinate geometry, and that's the standard, I can do 2.0 and 3.0 items. But then I can also design as my rehearsal, having Mark Rober come in and talk about steering the Mars rover. Now, he's a YouTuber, so the kids are going to maybe think that's cool. Maybe they'll want to do their squirrel race. It's good. But they're going to do steering the Mars rover, speaking with coordinate geometry. Now, some kids, after they do that part, that's that 4.0 piece, and they go, I hate outer space, and it's made me uncomfortable the whole time. How would I use coordinate geometry with the little Nemo and look at deep ocean exploration? Now I'm into something that was authentic to the kid. How are we doing with this? Other kids are still like, no, I'm totally going with the Mars rover. And that's where that, so there are lots of opportunities, but what we've had to do is go to teachers and go, teachers, it's not enough just to get the kids to be able to solve a problem. They have to understand why our society is forcing them to learn this. And if they don't know why we're forcing them to learn it, we're not there yet. So it got easier with mathematics, but also harder because we needed professional development into it. Hi. You guys are a great team. Well, what happens is it depends. Okay, and we don't. So part of what's going on here is some standards are in bundles, meaning this standard might be how do you write a sentence, and this standard might be how do I write a paragraph, and then this standard, well, sorry, oh man, I used the wrong things. These are my 2.0, 3.0. This might be how do I write a sentence, this is how do I write a paragraph, and this is how do I write a 5-paragraph essay, okay? So if I'm doing this bundle, I'm going to take this one to the 4.0 because this one is the summative of these two pieces, okay? So that's a rationale. Not every single standard is created equal. So for me to just arbitrarily tell the teachers, you have to go to 4.0 on every single one of those standards, now I got myself like a compliance problem. But what the teachers will say is, I prioritize this standard for the purposes of reporting. I'm going to go to 4.0 on this standard, and these two are going to be at that 2.0 and 3.0 level for diagnosis and prescription, because if they can't write a 5-paragraph essay, Was it because they don't know how to write a sentence? Or was it because they don't know how to write a paragraph? Or because they don't really understand how a 5-paragraph essay goes together? I need to get, because I can penalize a kid for ages on this if I've missed the gap down on these two. So that's the rationale for really looking at the standards and just be painfully logical. You want to be super logical. Making a rule like all have to be in the same kind of compliance piece, it's going to work for some subject areas but not others. And then that's going to be a problem. If I'm reporting on one, I better have that go to the 4.0. That's my personal opinion. I know some schools say, we're just going to go to 3.0 first until we've all mastered even how to design 4.0 items. I've heard that argument. What I just said? If I'm reporting on a standard, like it's going on a legal document, correct, on a report card. Whoa, grading and reporting are two different things. Let me say it like this. Scoring, grading, and reporting are three different things. Scoring is correct or incorrect. I score items. It's either correct or incorrect. There's no points. Grading is me figuring out, is this student approaching standard, at standard, or above standard? That's that 4.0, 3.0, or 2.0. Reporting goes on a legal document and a transcript. I do not put every single standard on a report card. I do expect a teacher to be able to talk to me about how my student is doing on every single standard up until where they've been. I totally want information on every single standard. I do not want every single standard going on into a report card. It's not developmentally appropriate. Some standards, in fact, have 3 or 4 years where the students have time to learn it, and it shouldn't be held accountable on a legal document. There's a question over here. Did you want one? Do you have a question too? Okay, okay.
So,
I'm so glad you're back.
I don't know. Is it safe to say we're like Mile High is at like the toddler stage or the infancy stage of standards-based learning, and based on whatever stage we're at, and I'm not trying to say this like our teachers are incompetent or anything like that.
No, we love all our teachers. I got it.
Transitions and shift in your mind from something that you're used to something new, there's going to be growing pains.
For sure.
And so based on your experience, right, how long does it really take for, Mile High as a school, or, looking at other schools that are similar to Mile High, how long will it take for us to get to that point where, we feel like, okay, we're in a rhythm and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing?
Good, fair question. All right, let's play baseball. I gave you 3 purposes. Remember that? 3 whys. Honest and transparent feedback at a diagnosis level for 2.0 and 3.0, I would say you're actually doing really well. With the group I worked with today, you have moved exceptionally fast. I can't even say enough about how impressed I am with the teachers I worked with today. It just normally doesn't go that fast and that well. We made jokes, we're like, oh, that training was so last summer. But they had the pieces, and they really tried to do it. And I was like, what? This is amazing. They weren't like, why do we need to do 2.0 and 3.0 items? They were like, how do we make awesome, effective 4.0 items? That was where they started, and this is the second time they've seen me. So not for nothing, I bow. You are on a much faster track than I'm used to, number 1. Number 2, not all teachers are at that level. So I think you might have, we would have to differentiate, just like we differentiate for the kids, I think you're gonna have to differentiate for your teachers, okay? Especially if you get new teachers coming in or you get turnover in a certain spot, that's gonna affect the answer to this question. Now, so for diagnosis and prescription, not only are you there, but you have teachers who are good enough at it or resources at other places that they've been tapping into that they're gonna get there. Now the second one, more time, right, has to speed up so that I can get relevant and authentic experiences. We're not there yet. Because they're still learning, they're not fast at it yet. They're not fluent in it. Usually I'm going to give that a year to get those 4.0 items up to the level that I'm expecting, okay? They'll do 4.0 items that are like, hi, we just cranked up the verb. But we can do a lot better than that, right? So that's going to take a year. The self-navigation tool, which came up today, because they're like, how do we get the kids to keep track of this and organize this and actually teach them how to be self-navigating? They got to get those self-navigation tools in play. They know it. They have a template for it. They have a structure for it. But they have to change how they're doing instruction to make that happen, and they're going to need feedback on that. So that's usually happens in that year because you need the self-navigation tool to pull off these 4.0s the way I was talking about them. You need that tool in place. So that's easily another year. Now, I just said that. No. That you could do that in the same year. Okay, you can do that in the same year with support. Some schools, I come once a year, or they don't have other people helping them. Make that 5 years, because they try and do work. They do a lot of work. Then they were doing it all wrong, which gives them disappointment, and the teachers get frustrated with that. If they have enough support, you could do exactly what I just said.
And you can give more information on this. But sometimes it feels like, or it may seem as though, as we're transitioning and teachers are learning, the implementation is coming, and in moments it may feel sluggish, right? In moments, even for the teachers, it feels that way at times, that we're getting something lesser. And the fact of the matter is we're not. We're actually getting something more. And part of the thing is that parents are asking questions at a higher level than you probably ever did in your child's education career. And we don't really realize that. We may never have spent this much time trying to understand how our learning fits into the grading models and scoring models and reporting models and how that impacts this and that and the other. And for the most part, even in high quality, right, 100-point scale implementations, they never understood curriculum and the impact of curriculum or design of curriculum in order to raise a 4.0. It was a simple rigor. We're going to make it really tough, and we thought that that was making it better.
I just had to make it tough enough that not too many kids succeeded on it. Think about that. I don't actually have to teach the kids. I just have to find the ones who can succeed and figure out what I want them to do, get an A, and the other ones who don't. Not my problem. This is a whole new level of expectation. And to be clear, I just told you I have a lot of little kids. I have 4 kids. I had to think about that for a second. 4 kids under the age of 13. I would put all 4 of my kids in your rough draft, not completed, I'm still learning it version of this system than in any polished 100-point system I'm aware of. Because it's a better education. It's a better opportunity. You don't even need to be polished. The fact that they have diagnosis level at 2.0 and 3.0, my kid just got back an assessment from one school, all read, all marked up, and I said to my child, all right, well, what are you going to do to improve this? She's like, I don't know. Well, what did this mean? What were you supposed to do with this? I don't know. You're telling me that kid is aware of what's going on? That's not active learning. And then when they get a bad grade, the kid's going to say, my teacher did that to me. Not, I made these choices and this is where I am. They're totally disconnected from it. So just please understand, I would easily take the rough draft version of what I saw today with the teachers I worked with today, absolutely put my kids into that program. Even with the shame, not enough 4.0s. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
I think I have to try to wrap my mind around this is a paradigm shift, right?
Yeah.
It's a big one and it hurts my brain.
I'm so sorry.
And
I get accused of that a lot
and
too.
so, yeah, thanks for hurting my brain. But that's how you grow, I know. So, but as a parent, what I want to know is, and as a kid too, I have to realize the ABC thing is so ingrained. I mean, I have my recollection of schools from the 80s and 90s. right?
Hardcore
So,
ABCD. Yep.
so when I look at, as a kid, I was doing mad minutes and I could never get them done because I can't do repetition that well. Anyways, I wish I had done this when I was a kid. But now my kids are in school, and what I want to know as a parent is, and I think this is probably where some parent frustration comes in and stuff, is like, how do I help my kid? Because I want to make sure my kid's doing what they're supposed to do, right? So I look at so what do? I pull up their report card, and I'm going to say, ooh, you have a B-. I know that you're an A kid because you're smart.
Right.
So that means you're not doing something. So then I look at the report card, and I go, you have all of these homework assignments. So in my head, I'm like, all right, well, what adds up to the grade? You have all these homework assignments. And then I look, so here's what some of the frustration, and I just need to know how to deal with it, right?
Right.
So I look at it and I go, oh, you've done all your homework assignments, you've got 100%, but you've got a B-. What's going on? I don't understand. So I think the parents just need some tools to know, how do I make sure my kids are doing so you're talking about all this assessment and all that, that's great. I just don't know how to use those tools yet, right?
I'm with you.
So I need to be able to switch my brain from my old tools of, I'm just looking for holes, like you didn't turn in an assignment, or you need to redo an assignment, or, because that's where my brain will go to. And also I think our kids need that too, because our kids are kind of indoctrinated into this, and they're going to go, I'm going to say, well, what, you have a B-. Why didn't you turn in? And I go, well, you're missing a homework assignment. And the kid goes, well, that homework assignment doesn't matter. My teacher said it's not part of the assessment. And you're like, homework assignments don't matter. What are you talking about? It's like, I don't know how to deal with that. So I think we just need tools to deal with that. The kids need to know how to deal with it, and we need to deal with it, right?
Man, I want to do a training on homework. Here we go.
And
yes.
I just don't know.
Right.
Like I realize that I don't know.
So
and
here's
I just
what you
need to
do.
know.
Parents, the report card is not where you're going to get the information anymore. You are going to go to the self-navigation tool. Self-navigation tools are the best way for me to communicate with my student. It's also the best way for a parent to know what's going on. So this is one for high school algebra. And what you're looking at on the left are the learning targets that the child needs to learn for this unit. Now, I might have given this to the child day one of the unit. I go, hi, these are all the learning targets for the whole unit. I'm going to give you a pre-assessment. Look, you're good at certain ones. You're approaching or meeting expectation. Those are the only two things. But I also give them feedback, like you missed these, or you need to practice these, or you know what? Don't worry, you totally need to learn these, but you should pay attention when we're doing those. This puts the kids in the toward state of where they are. It also gives feedback on where are they approaching expectation and where do they meet it. So see how this works? This is the entire unit and everything the kids need to do with these pieces, and they're getting data on it. Meets expectation, or they need to practice it or learn it. Are you following me on this? Okay. So as I'm scrolling down, the child works on this, and they have to do what's called a learning plan. So they have to, I'm good at these, so these are the things I know. These are the things I need to practice, and these are the things I need to learn. That's going to help them with that self-motivation. You don't go from I need to learn it to I'm good at it. You go from I need to learn it to I need to practice it, and then from I need to practice it to I'm good at it. And just because you're good at it doesn't mean you don't keep doing it. You need to keep doing those. It builds a sense of expertise, and it strengthens your skill set. So for this, the students then are going to be taught, all right, so what's your next steps? We used to do this. Remember this? We would set up SMART goals and stuff. And what will happen here is kids are terrible at goal setting. They don't know how to self-direct. So we need to teach them that. And we go, okay, if you needed to practice one or learn one, what are you going to do? The teachers prepare for the students this. Now, this one's from a school that's been doing this for many, many years. Your teachers are going to give them 2 learning strategies. There are 16 ways the human brain learns. Your kids are going to learn all 16 ways. But here are ways at home, without the teacher, the child can learn and practice every single learning target. I don't want them doing homework that they might be doing wrong and then learn an incorrect way to do it or be tempted to cheat. Okay? So we're trying to stop those behaviors. But these are things they can do to learn, if they have to learn it, if they have to practice it, or just want them doing it to strengthen their skill sets or take on challenges. This is where they go. And you would say, show me the self-navigation tool. Okay, so you're good with these? What's going on with these? And what that allows is homework night. Your kid is working on what they actually need to work on. Your kid is working on what they actually need to work on. I don't want one homework. What if the kid doesn't need that? It's meaningful work. And that's the tool you're going to have. Forget the report card. We don't have this right now. Well, they were built. We were working on them. I've been looking at ones that your teachers have been doing today. I was like, what? That's awesome. This tool makes this work. Yes, sir. By the way, just for the record, you all can go home. Okay, your time limit has come. I will stay here as long as you want and answer questions, but officially, we're done. Okay? All right, back to the work. Sir.
I mean, this sounds a lot like adult learning theory applied in the classroom, and I think it's great. I mean, everything sounds great about it. It sounds like what you say, though, is it's going to take some time to implement it, to get the teachers trained, the students on board, the parents. So how do we provide equity to our students that are in high school, maybe graduating next year, this year, the following year, and there's some serious issues here. And they can't walk into college with maybe a C in a course. So how do we make this equitable when we're rolling it out in high school?
So just to be clear with the grading piece, if your son or daughter has the 3.0, that's not a C. They're not going to get a C.
2.25.
That does. So first of all, just for the record, I don't even know what that means. So that one I would call, we need an intervention and we need to look at what happened there, because you don't average these grades. So I would suspect that that information is just the software forcing a system on something, and it's incorrect. What actually is flying is best performance stands on that. That's what is going to happen for that child this year.
So, as a parent, I have no idea where he's at. I have no clue, and I have no idea where that grade, is that grade going to stay at a 2.25? Is it going to be a 3.0? Is it going to be a 3.5? I have no idea. I have no idea what to do to even help him.
Okay. So in that case, what your students should be seeing right now is this. And this is across the board. So I would be very, like, see that learning target, the I can? All your teachers took the standards, bundled the standards into a year-long context that becomes the non-negotiable during that time, and they were unpacking them. They were making P scales. If they made a P scale, they should have that learning target. So that's what the child should be able to do. And your student should get those learning targets. So I would say, first place I would start as a parent is, hey, where's the learning targets? If they're not doing well on certain learning targets, I would follow up with the teacher and say, what are learning strategies? Now, they may not have a self-navigation tool in play, but I would want those learning strategies to help them.
Okay.
Yeah, I would do that.
That's great. And then what do you do when the learning standards are way below grade level?
Okay, what do you mean? I need an example.
When you're doing things that were 3 or 4 grade levels below where they're at now. And they're doing wonderful in the class, but the standards are... So I guess my point is it's all about who's writing the standards, what are the standards, and are they applicable for that grade level? Because that's where the rubber meets the road.
Well, yeah, the standard, Colorado has very clear standards, and the SDA have very clear standards. Your SDA, your organization, the NAD, did tremendous work on the standards, and you have full access to all. And not only that, they made bundles, and they made P scales, and they unpacked them all. And they even have sample assessment items. The SDA is way ahead on this work. They've done a really good job in supporting you. So they should be going there. Your teachers should not be making up their standards. If that's happening, call me. You need an intervention. The NAD wrote the SDA standards. What? Yeah. Well, and guess who the NAD used? Guess what they used? Okay, it's all the same game. Call it what you want.
I think we're in the same boat.
Talk to me.
This is the first time it's popped up. Like, we haven't had,
Yeah.
But I'm not a good looker on some of this stuff that I see
The learning targets, okay?
And I see the grades, and there's like 20 assignments. Great, I'm cool with that. Then there's like 3 that are the, I don't know what to call it.
Can I look over your shoulder?
Look at our grade book.
Can I look at this?
Maybe it's not what we should be looking at, but it's what
Oh, I need glasses. Whoa.
Sorry, zoom in. Oh, yeah, oh, wow. Thanks. Okay. So that's the standard. Perfect. I'm like, great. So is it 2 out of 5? She got a 2 out of 5. 2.5 out of 2.5. Well, the average, I don't know.
So it's difficult to look at it on the app. Are you on the app or the website?
On the app. I'm not, well, but this is.
Yeah.
That's what parents see. So maybe see. That's what we see.
So the app doesn't.
The software is putting a false average on something that shouldn't be averaged,
Okay, but then I emailed the teacher. I'm like, hey, I don't understand. Just making sure.
right?
What do we have? It's showing B minus. Now it's just showing B, which is, I just want to know, like, is this what we're seeing?
Yeah.
Yes, but I haven't put in the last few things. Fine.
Okay, that's normal.
But it was like, yes, I see that she's got a B. I'm like, okay, so this is what she's got, but I'm only seeing it as like 3 items, not 20.
Yes. Wouldn't it be great if there was a system that could do this accurate? Okay. So I would say that tonight's purpose was to really help you understand the why and to get ready to set up your own expectations of how it should look. Okay? You needed information of what it should look like. What this is going to allow us to do is to continue to support the faculty and to continue to know when things aren't going the way it should go. I will tell you, everyone knew that. Mr. Carpenter and I sat and talked this afternoon, and we talked about that. So you're all on the same page about where that is.
Yeah, and as far as, sometimes individual questions about certain class, Marie doesn't have access to our stuff.
Yeah.
So if you have questions about specific things in class, I'll be more than happy to stay by and help navigate that and communicate with the teacher, yeah.
So what would you say to the kid who's like, because you mentioned early on, the A students who figure out how to get A's.
Yeah.
And struggle with this. So I'm guessing we probably have quite a few of those in this room,
Oh, I'm betting.
right? And so you're going to say, I'm a junior in high school. I'm
Mm-hmm.
used to getting A's. I'm looking at colleges. Now all of a sudden I show a C and I'm freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do for those kids? Like,
Right.
how do you fill that gap? Is the C really going to stick? I'm not quite clear on that. Is the C going to stick? Is it not going to stick?
Like, I don't know
Do I
if
need
this
to
is
make?
B or
How can I help them as a parent?
Right. So can I separate three different, there are 3 conversations going on, so let's play this out. Conversation number 1, hey Marie, we're on a journey and we're learning all the skills, and it's gonna take us time to do those things, and we need to know how much time that's gonna be and how much training that's gonna be, and seriously, what are we gonna do with our software, all right? So that's conversation number 1. Conversation number 2, Marie, we have a small group of kids that are currently juniors and seniors and really facing down that, hi, we're sending this transcript. Could you please tell me exactly how this is going to look for these 2 years? I understand it may look differently when everybody's up and running, and I understand it might even go somewhere else with that, but hi, for these next 2 years, could we lay this out? I think that that's a valid conversation. I'd want those answers to myself. My suspicion is it's going to be no, that's not going to stand. But again, just to be fair, I've been here a whopping 1 day so far. Last time I saw these teachers was last summer. But I am here till Wednesday. By the way, 2 shows a day. Feel free to stop by today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. We're going to be working on exactly those pieces, so I would look for an answer to that. The third one is, does this always look exactly the same, or is there going to be something that's unique to our school as SDA and our school as Mile High, right? I'm telling you generalizations about what it could be, but there's still further conversation about what is it that we're going to make this be and how is that going to be, which is why I can't sit here and say, it better be like this, because you might make the choice to go in a different direction. I have to leave that room open to you as an organization. So those are 3 situations. I feel like this one is very timely, and I feel like that might be a lot of the feelings that I have in the room. So rock on. Let's have this conversation knowing it's not going to influence long-term the other 2. Thank you.
So I just want to say, for the juniors walking into getting close, or seniors moving into college and having gone through this with another high school, and Marie with hundreds of high schools.
Yep.
I want you to consider that in college, how many professors will have the same grading system? It looks similar because there's a 100-point scale, but the application of it is all very different. This always happens. I can tell you, for example, of a high school teacher, even before we were trying to transition, she had A, B, C, D, E, F, G, because it's just 10 points down. So, you know, you can get down to H and I down there, right, in the grade level, because it's all just 10-point increments, correct? So the point of what I'm making is you're going to go into one professor who is high-stakes kind of testing type of thing. You get one midterm, you get one final. There's your grade, right? You have a professor that they're gonna stand up, they're gonna lecture for 2 hours, they're gonna tell you to read all the book, and then you gotta determine and figure it out in the first test which one they're actually gonna test you on, because they may never use the books, or they may never use the lecture, or they may do portions of both.
Or sassy, they might just ask you, who's the author of the textbook? And that's the entire question, and then you sit there and go, dang it. We can't fix those weird gotchas.
But I'm speaking specifically to juniors in high school, because the question was about a junior in high school. And so the point of what I'm saying is, this is not that round where we're going for information obscurity or information, censorship. We're actually doing the opposite. We're giving more information to students about their learning than they've ever had in their entire school career, even if we're not in full implementation, even if it's not perfect implementation yet. Ask the juniors. Mr. Carpenter, he was just telling about a conversation as they're going through. They said, how many of you have ever known exactly everything you have to learn in class, the standards you got to hit and what you have to do? Like, never. And do you now? Yeah. Oh, okay. See, so the point of what I'm making is, even in this transitional phase, there is absolutely more information. So it's not that there's a less information now. It's that what do we do with it? That's what you guys are asking too. That's what the students are asking. There's a bit of a learning. And so what I'm saying to these juniors, are we being negatively impacted? No. Because pretty soon you're going to leave here. And even in the 2 years, a bit of implementation as you're walking out, you're going to say, man, I get the value of what that was before. And this is what we had across the board. So at our high school, coming over, the seniors that left and we had implementation of this, they were not negatively impacted. In fact, most of them said it helped them to ask better questions at the college level. Because a lot of it is process learning and understanding how it is that we build what we're doing and these kinds of things, and the communication piece of it. So it actually has a better impact overall. So it's not like, again, that because we're implementing this, there's a loss of quality until we get to the end of it. We've actually improved, okay? We've actually improved in the system. And really the conversation is, and I'm telling you guys, I applaud you, the level of conversation is higher. I don't even know if you recognize it. It is much higher than it's ever been in terms of it, even with the challenges. The questions you're asking are more targeted in terms of student learning.
So we talked with a group of juniors today, and we asked them, they said, well, we always had objectives before. And we said, yeah, but were those always clearly aligned to the assessment? And they had to think about it for a second. And then Mr. Carpenter was like, well, hold the phone. Are your assessments now directly aligned to your standards? They were like, oh, well, yeah. And you're like, well, there was your answer. You had to hesitate and even think about it before. You know exactly what's going on.
And they could recite the standard to me from memory, just sitting in class.
What they had to do.
What exactly, when I said give me a standard, they gave me the standard that they were being assessed on.
So that awareness of their own process is what we're going for. The report card not working out correctly, you had me at hello, let's get it fixed. You want help knowing where your student is? Let's go after the self-navigation tool. But you could ask your kid, what standard are you working on and where is it? And they should be able to tell you. And that's the best way for you to find out what's going on with this. Not logging on to the report card. I apologize to you that the report card is not where it needs to be, because the frustration on that stinks. And I'm really sorry on that. But the methodology of what's going on with your kids is better, and you'll tell by, ask them, go ask them what's going on and where they are in the process. Now, they may hate how they're going with the grading, especially if they were straight A kids before, because they're going to be like, right, and having panic. I promise you we're not going to penalize your kids and ruin their chances to make it into college. There's so many ways that we can get that fixed, no problem. We're not here to hurt anybody. We really want them being aware of what's going on, okay? So go out.
So like that's amazing.
That's amazing. And which standard it is. What she said was, you can totally tell where she was doing fantastic.
Yeah, you can tell on her report card, there's 20
Yep.
assignments, and it says 1A or whatever it is, it was 100. The next one was 100. The next one was 67. I know exactly which standard she did not understand at all.
And that's the one I would go home. You can look it up. And by the way, if you just Google the standard number there, you'll get 18 things to help your student with in terms of sample problems, sample websites, sample things to do. It's well calculated. Oh, hi, Dave.
Hi.
Hey.
Can you hear me? Just sort of zooming out a little bit, I have a 7th grader.
Okay.
So unlike some of the parents here that are very concerned about how does this impact their college applications next year, I feel like we're going to benefit from 7th grade and really evolving into this self-navigating tool for my daughter to better understand what she needs to learn, what the standards are, and what she's working on specifically to reach those standards. So it seems like remarkable that we have, my question really is, have we just tripped on something that's this little experimental thing that's only happening here, or is this happening broadly? And it also, my sort of second part of my question is, and when applying to university, my daughter chose to follow an IB.
Yeah.
And there was a big, question about how can she get into a North American school, and everybody's taking AP classes, and she took an IB in Shanghai, and is this somehow entering yet a third way of learning that universities are going to have to adapt to say, is it an AP course driven, is it an IB, or is it an experience standards-based in a new way of entering into universities?
Did everyone hear the two different questions? Okay. Answer to number 2 first. IB, the International Baccalaureate, has their own version called a DP exam as opposed to an AP exam. There's this big competition into which one's more rigorous, la la la. Everyone with me on this? Okay. No. IB and what we call the AP structure is a curriculum design, okay? So a curriculum design, both of them can be standards-based. In fact, Shanghai International, they're already standards-based.
Wow.
I know, and I worked there. Stacy Stevens. So what happens there is all those, whether it's IB, AP, or whatever else you want to call it, rock on, because the standards are identifying the minimum expectations. AP and DP are defining the maximum expectations. How's that? Does that help?
Yep.
All right, awesome. Answer to question number 1. Did we trip on this? Answer, no. It's pervasive because the call to stop sorting kids, because here's the other thing colleges ran into. Top 10% of the class of this school, totally different from the top 10% of the class from this school. And an A from that teacher is not the same as an A from this teacher or that teacher. It's toast. They know that.
Yeah.
So they're ready and they want clarity. That's what they're going for. They know what the standards are. They're having that conversation. Now, did you trip over something? Yes, you did. Ellen White was very clear in her work on what it meant for education. And so the SDA was already on the trail to really going after meaningful experiences before the rest of the world caved in. And you didn't fall for the, let's just switch the report card first and let everybody figure it out, which is what's happening in public schools all over the place. And then they have to fail for a couple of years, and then they call me in. I love it. They're like, we started standards-based grading and reporting 3 years ago. Can you fix it? I'm like, yes, put me in front of an angry crowd right from the start. That's fantastic, right? Okay, so you didn't do that. You have intentionally, this was part of your strategic plan for how many years now?
Well, here?
Yeah, because it was part of the plan before you got here.
So in 2018, when the school had its last evaluation,
right.
this was part of the action plan, and the school hiring me was a part of that action.
Right, so you are pursuing leadership that know what they're doing, bringing in training for your faculty before they actually have to pull it off, and you're giving them enough time to do it. Please teach the rest of the world how to do this. You're an amazing school system. You're doing it the right way. Thanks for letting me be a part of it. Thank you, everyone, very much. Have a good night.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
What I meant was, Mr. Carpenter, would you like to close the session?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Anyway, I would like to close it. It's closed. No, let's pray. And Heavenly Father, we thank you for the time that we've had together. You know, there's questions and adjustments that we're making, and we just pray that you'll continue to help us to have open, honest conversations. At the end of the day, Lord, all of us want the success of our students and for them to reach their greatest potential. And so we pray that you'll continue to guide us in that endeavor. And we pray this in your name. Amen. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you later. I'll be around for a little bit.